Okay, we're recording.
Okay. Welcome everybody to virtual present introductions. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. We are recording this presentation, so if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat box and Erin will help me with asking those questions, and I will try to help as much as possible with answering them. After the recording is completed, we will upload them into our YouTube channel so that this presentation can be watched again in the future. So feel free to visit there and look at the other presentations that our office has also put on. So Erin will put the YouTube channel in our chat box also for you so you can easily find it. My name is Sandy Oman, and I work in the Career Services office. I'm an assistant director. And just in case you haven't visited our office before, our office is located on the third floor of the Student Union, across from the elevators and the library. We do work mostly by appointments, especially right now. So if you'd like to meet with us, your program managers, you can go into your Handshake account under Career Center and Appointments and set up a time to meet one-on-one with your program manager. Thank you for joining us today, and let's get started. So first we're going to talk about, first on the agenda is what we are going to cover today. So first of all, I'm going to cover elevator speech, because really that's what your virtual introduction is. It's your elevator speech in a virtual environment. However, it might not be quite as involved as an elevator speech usually is, so we're going to talk about that. What are some of the formats and the uses of a virtual introduction? What are some tips that you can control to make your virtual introduction and your virtual experiences as successful as possible? And then also I have a quick video tip to share with you, and some practice exercises that you can do on your own to be more prepared for your virtual introduction and virtual experiences as a whole. So first we're going to talk about elevator speech. So what is an elevator speech? Well, an elevator speech is a quick introduction of yourself to somebody that you are wanting to get to know, to meet, and to interact with. The idea behind the elevator speech came about back in the .com era, when you might find yourself in an elevator with a CEO or a prominent person in a company that you are interested in, and you have about 20 to 30 seconds to get to the top floor or where they're getting off to pitch yourself, your product, your idea to them and catch their attention. So you really have to be focused on what you're saying to them and make sure you hit all the highlights that they would be interested in. Well, it's the same thing for an elevator speech or an elevator pitch. Another way that this is shared as an elevator pitch, same kind of concept. It's the same thing when you are introducing yourself to someone, but you want to talk about you. You're the product. You have the skills, the qualifications, the interest in the company, and so you want to share that with them. So in general, it's about 20 to 30 seconds that you would talk about you, what you have to offer, why you're interested in the company, and then you have an ask, what you want to do, what's the next step. Whether that's tell me about your program, can I follow up with you via an email, like whatever that ask might be. That's usually at the end of your elevator speech or your introduction. So you also want to practice it out loud, but first you want to write it so that you have every element that you want to share with them, and then scale it back down to a few bullet points so that you can easily remember the steps that you want to go through to talking them about the qualifications, the skills, and what you want them to know about you. So scale them back to just a few brief bullet points that you can easily remember that will help you to share what it is you want to share with them. And then practice it out loud, and then practice it with a friend or somebody that will give you good feedback on how to adjust it and give you some good critique so that you can make it better. You want to also have it sound very natural. You don't want it to sound canned or so prepared. You want to be very comfortable and flexible with your introduction so that you can stop and start it based on the natural flow of your conversation. So you don't just want to like hit them full force with, "Hi, my name is Sandy," that, and then tell them all about me. You want to stop and let them introduce themselves, and stop maybe throughout your introduction just to let them make a comment or ask a further question. So this is really just like an introduction to who you are, and then it's supposed to be enough content so that they then can ask further questions and create the conversation you're hoping to have. So how do you start? Well, first of all, you want to know your audience. So this is where your elevator speech or your virtual introduction, your elevator speech needs to be tailored to the company if at all possible. So if you know you've signed up to go talk to Textron and talk to Lockheed Martin, then those conversations will probably sound a little different because your interest in each company could be just a little different. So you want to make sure that what you say to Textron and then what you say to Lockheed Martin have really been thought about, and like why you're interested in each company. And maybe you have a class or a skill or a project you've worked on that would apply to those companies, but they're not the same. So you want to just be prepared to talk to them individually. So know your audience and customize that introduction. You want to know yourself. What is it that you have to offer? You're thinking about skills, certain qualifications, certain experience you've had, whether it's an internship or working on a project or working in a club like the Baja Club or um, the the Bassa Club, or whatever club you might have done, the Rocket Club, where you've actually worked on projects that you could then relate to the company or the person you're talking to demonstrate a certain skill that you've had. So know your strengths, your qualifications, what you have to offer a company, and then think about some adjectives that might describe yourself. Are you motivated? Are you driven? Are you fun-loving? Those are some of the things that you might include in an introduction, but again, you want it to sound real natural. And promoting yourself doesn't feel natural for most people, so you kind of have to practice and just make sure it's appropriate as you introduce yourself. What is it that you're trying to, quote, sell them? That means you're basically yourself, your abilities, and you want them to hire you or to talk to you further. So what is it that you want them to know about you, and make sure you write that out. And then why are you interested in the company? If you're thinking about these things ahead of time, it'll be a lot easier to work them in and weave them into an introduction. um, who am I? What do I do, or what do I have to offer? This is sort of an outline you want to follow. What's your unique selling point? Maybe it's an experience that you've had. Maybe it's a certain skill, SQL, and the position that they're hiring for is really looking for SQL. So or strong advanced Excel skills, or it could be something a lot more technical. So what is your unique selling point? And it might not be that you're that much different from other people, other candidates. However, if they don't talk about it and you do, then that's where you stand out a little bit more. So that's what makes you different from the competition, because you are preparing and practicing and making a good impression and sharing with them what it is that you have to offer and bring to the company. Maybe you have a really good application story or an accomplishment that you'd like to share with them that you could be prepared to talk about in your introduction. And again, this isn't very long, so you have to be really intentional about what you're going to include when you're introducing yourself. And then what that action is at the end of your introduction. I'd like to know more about the opportunities coming up with Textron for next summer for internships. Or I've heard that you offer spring and fall internships as well as summer. Can you tell me if you're planning on having spring internships? And I'd like to know more about when you're going to be, advertising those, and and then go from there. So what is your ask from that introduction and that interaction with the company? And then you want to finalize it by writing it out, like I mentioned before, and then scaling it back to easily remembered bullets or words that'll help you when you have to stop and start the conversation, and be flexible to make it sound natural. That's basically how do you write an elevator speech. So let me show you a basic introduction. So this is just a really basic script, and In this script, there's some things that are missing from what I've just shared with you, but I'll play both sides. How about that? Hello, my name is John Student. Hi, John. My name is Connie Smith. It's nice to meet you, Miss Smith. I'm very happy to see that Boom Supersonic was attending the Virtual Industry Career Expo. They're not attending yet, but anyways, let's dream. So they're attending the Virtual Career Expo this year. I've been following Boom Supersonic for a long time, and I'm a junior in the aerospace engineering program at Embry-Riddle. I plan to graduate May of 2022, and as a junior, I'm interested in working for Boom Supersonic on the whatever project it might be that they're working on. I reviewed the company website and I saw that you have an internship program. Can you tell me more about this program? So what do you guys think is missing from my virtual introduction there? Feel free to turn your mic on.
I mean, you don't really talk about yourself all that much and like what you've accomplished or what your skills are.
Exactly. That's why this is called a basic introduction. So a basic script for a virtual introduction or an elevator speech. This is just, you know, approaching them and telling them a little bit about your interest in the company, a little bit about you, but not really specifically about the skills you have. So that's where you want to tailor that description a little bit more, so that or tailor what you have to offer to that company, so that you take it from a basic introduction to a personal introduction. Okay, so sometimes, you know, a student might just need a place to start. I don't know where to start. This would be the place to start, and then start to tailor it to the company and the positions and the skills that you have that they would be looking for. And that's how you make it more personal, and you start a real in-depth, more meaningful conversation with them.
Sandy, we have a question in the chat box, and I'm not
Okay.
sure if you want them as they come in, or this one happens to be right in time, I think.
Okay, that sounds fine.
What tweaks to your elevator pitch would you make if you're looking for a full-time job instead of an internship?
That's a good question. And really, I wouldn't make a lot more, a lot of tweaks. I would say, using this basic script, instead of saying I'm a junior in whatever program it is you're in, I would say I am a recent graduate, or I am going to be graduating in December, and I'm looking for full-time opportunities. I saw that your company is hiring for X position. I'd like to learn a little bit more about that. And so I think that you could tweak it just a little bit. Of course, adding in, I've worked on this project that's very similar to, you know, what this position that you're recruiting for covers. You know, talk about that project a little bit, where in this project, I was the lead for the whatever team, where we did whatever that might be. And then, so that's where you could tailor that conversation a little bit more to a certain company, a certain position, and where you are, if you're looking for full-time or you're looking for internship. Now, for an experienced alum who could be watching this recorded later, I would say that conversation probably sounds a little different for them, but that's why this is basic, and that would be a lot more tailored as to where they've been and why they're looking for a job now, or why they're interested in talking to that company now. Is that helpful?
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay. And yes, Erin, you can just ask the questions as they come in. That's fine. So what are some formats you might find yourself working in or visiting when you might be doing a virtual introduction? Well, obviously, Zoom. We're all pretty experienced with Zoom these days. Skype, Facebook Messenger, Google Hangouts, Microsoft Teams. Obviously, you guys are familiar with that too. GoToMeeting, Adobe Connect, WebEx, and a whole host of others, but those are some of the most common live video platforms that you might experience. I didn't mention Handshake, but Handshake's going to be on there because that's where our Career Expo is going to be hosted. And it is going to be a live video like we're doing right now, so you will have face-to-face interaction with a company representative. What are some of the pros to a virtual introduction or a virtual live format? And that would be, you get the opportunity to make face-to-face impressions with that recruiter or that representative. And then interact live with that person, ask questions, answer questions live, and get timely responses, obviously. What are the cons? And those cons might be that that your area that you're in might be distracting, that your technology or that there's some technology or environmental thing that is a distraction or a hindrance to connecting virtually with them. Again, things that we've all experienced over the last few months. But I think a lot of those can be controlled as long as you make sure that your technology is working, you've got a good Wi-Fi connection, your background's appropriate, and that you're dressed appropriate, and all those other areas I'm going to cover in just a few minutes. That those are controllable things for the most part. So really the live interactions with the representative virtually are more pros than cons. A lot of the virtual career fairs that are happening these days are actually happening with platforms that are chat rooms. And so you're chatting with a representative, there's no live interaction. And so there's definitely some more drawbacks to that. The only pro that I could think of was that there's no video required, so you could do it in your pajamas if you wanted to. Even though we don't recommend that, I would still get dressed up for that because it puts you in the right mindset, a professional mindset, so that you're going to conduct yourself a little bit more professionally. However, the cons for those virtual chat rooms are going to be more like there's no face-to-face impressions that you get to make on them or that they get to make on you. So that's a drawback, that there's some delays in the responses from those recruiters. So they might have a delay in response to you. You might have a delay in response to them. So you might not get your questions answered, or and there's no way to really kind of like facilitate that further. So that's definitely a con. What are some uses to for a virtual interaction? And that would be obviously the career fairs, the career expos that are available to you, networking events. So a lot of professional organizations and student group organizations are doing more networking events virtually, so it allows their members to connect. And so that's great, but then also a lot of times that means you get to go around the virtual room and introduce yourself. And so you want to be prepared for that, because I've had that happen to me where I wasn't prepared going into a networking event, and they're like, okay, let's go around and introduce ourselves and give us all an update about your company. And I was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to say? So I had to quickly think and make sure that I had something appropriate to say for that event. And so that means introducing who I am, what my position was, who I was representing, and then maybe a quick update about them. So that virtual introduction looks a little different than in a career fair, but both are important and both are making impressions. So you want to be prepared for whatever the type of event is that you're going into. Webinars are also might give you a little opportunity to introduce yourself, but it could be that that's in a chat box like you guys were doing today. And then obviously you're familiar with classes, and you might go find yourself in a new group or attending a class where you have to introduce yourself. And so you want to be prepared to talk about who you are and what your program is, and what you're offering. I do want to go back to the chat room, because one of the things I didn't talk about as far as a pro to a chat room is that while there could be delays in your replies because you're typing them out, the pro could be that you've prepared those responses, the typical type of responses, ahead of time and typed them out ahead of time. And it's easy just to copy and paste into a chat box about like maybe your virtual introduction, or some typical answers or answers to questions that you might ask someone about their company, or that they might ask you. So if you type those responses out ahead of time, even if they don't ask you a question exactly like you've prepared it, you probably will have those answers somewhere written down, and it's easy just to copy and paste it into the chat box and adjust it. So that's a quick tip that would take a little bit more preparation, but definitely something that you could do ahead of time to kind of help make the chat room better. All right, what are some tips for most events to help make your virtual introduction as successful as possible? Well, first, as I've already mentioned, you want to dress professionally. This means that, it could just be from the waist up if you would like to, but why not go ahead and make it the full professional dress, because it helps you to be more professionally minded, and it's going to boost your confidence going into that event. So I would say dress professionally from head to toe is what I would do. Make sure your environment is appropriate for that event, that you have a quiet location, that your background is neutral. Maybe if you want to use a virtual background, that's okay to do, but test it out ahead of time. And don't have it be like too distracting. If you're floating in space, or you're, shows that you're on the beach while you're talking, that might not be the best neutral background for, interacting with a company. It's memorable, but maybe not the most professional. Make sure you have good lighting, that the lighting is appropriate in facing you versus behind you, and that it or doesn't cast shadows on you. Um, and then also eliminate distractions that could be happening around you, such as things that are in your background, like posters or clothes or stuff on your nightstand that happens to be behind you, and that becomes more of a distraction than it is, and they get distracted by that versus listening and watching and interacting with you. That your audio is appropriate, and that there's not any background sounds going on around you. You've put the dog or the cat away and they're not walking in front of the camera while we're talking. That your roommates know that you're on a presentation or you're in an event, and so that they're not running in the middle of you talking to this company that you're really interested in. And then make sure your technology is appropriate. So setting up your laptop or your camera so that it's about 2/3 of arm's length away from you, so you're not too close but you're not too far away, or it's not too high, or you're not like looking down at it, because that's probably not the most flattering angle either. So you want to make sure that you've controlled that environment as the most possible. Also, maybe have some notebooks or pad of paper and something to write on close by and prepare, so that you can take notes, or you have your questions written out so that you can easily kind of follow along as you're having good conversation with a company or a person. And then also having that resume easily accessible in case you do need to pop a link to it and put it in the chat room or the chat box, so that that person can easily access that resume. So having that all ready to go and technology ready and controlled will be very helpful. Make sure that you smile when appropriate when you're talking to people. And so maybe that means you just put a little sticky note up above your camera so that it says smile on it, so you remind yourself to smile while you're talking to them, so that you don't necessarily want to be smiling the whole time, but definitely smile as you're talking, because it's reflected in your voice too. Lean into the camera some, but don't be like so far away, because it puts off the appearance of being disconnected and a little defensive. But leaning too close would also be inappropriate. So just the right amount of space between you and the camera, and make sure that that's oriented appropriately. If you're sitting at a desk, you might need to put your laptop up on a box so that your camera is appropriate angle for and best frames you for that interaction. And then make sure your body language is positive and open and not closed off by crossing your arms or putting your hands up on your face, that you are open and talking, because all of these things produce the appearance of confidence, and that leaves a positive impression on a company and a representative. What are some other things that you can prepare for? So in this particular case, as we're talking about the Industry Career Expo coming up, you want to make sure your handshake profile is updated, because they're going to be able to access that handshake profile, especially on a one-on-one meeting with a company. So update that handshake profile. Once we open up registration for our event, then you can go ahead and register ahead of time. You don't want to wait till the last minute to do that. So register ahead of time, so you can get familiar with the platform, and then also that you can make sure you're researching the companies. Although you can research the companies now, you don't have to wait until we open the registration up. Research those companies, as I just talked about. Research the companies that are attending. Go to their website. Look at their job postings. Are you interested in internships? If you are, do they have an internship program? Because those would be questions you'd be looking for in a group session or one-on-one you'd be asking about. Skills that they're looking for. Look at those job postings. Even if it's not the right level of position, the skills are probably going to be somewhat similar, especially if they're technical skills that they're looking for. So that way you know how to tailor your resume and your conversation, especially if you have those skills. And then what are some of the questions you'd want to ask them when you're interacting with them? Review any of our presentations we have on our Career Services YouTube channel that are all about preparing for the upcoming virtual career fair, about updating that handshake profile, a demo about the platform. You can watch that. We've got an interview presentation coming up soon, so you'll be able to go in and watch virtual interviewing presentation. So check that out. There's a lot of other videos on there that you can watch at your leisure that'll help you be a little more prepared for the career fair. Location, so arrive on time, log in on time, and actually do it early so that you can make sure that your technology is working and you're not having a problem with getting onto the event platform. So definitely be planning on that, and then test your technology and check that internet connection. Make sure you've got a good connection ahead of time. And then practice interacting with the camera. I know we've gotten a lot more comfortable with that over the last few months, but interacting with the camera, making good eye contact with it, and smiling when you're talking, because that's really important when you are interacting with a company. They can even pick it up in a group session when you're engaged and that you don't have that camera off, you have it on, and you're engaged with that recruiter or that representative. They pick it out in the presentation. And they might be a little more inclined to chatting more with you in a one-on-one session because you've stood out, whether by asking questions or really being engaged in that interaction with them. So now I want to play a quick little video that was James Roddy, our Director of Communications. I think he's Director of Communications. Anyway, he's in our communication department, that he has shared with me. I asked him to put a little video together for us, particularly about the virtual handshake. And so a lot of times we get used to going, bye, hello, and that's not really the most professional interaction. So he's going to demonstrate for you, but basically it's a slight nod to the person that you're talking to. So I'm going to play that really quick and let's see what he has to say. Oh, darn. Okay, I understand you guys can't hear this. Okay. We had this problem with another presentation earlier this week. All right. Well, can you guys still see me, hear me? Looks like my PowerPoint's restarting.
Yes.
We were close to the end. So this happened earlier when I played the video, so maybe it's a function problem with the video. Sorry guys. Do you guys have any questions really quick before while I try to figure this out? Open this back up again. I'm going to stop sharing and then I can maybe open it up. Let's see. Yeah, Aaron, I agree. I think there's a function problem with sharing a video in the middle of a Zoom. We'll have to maybe check that out in case we're going to do that in the future. Okay, looks like I might have it back up. share my screen again. All right. I think that should be it. There we go. Okay. Although it's not going to run back to where it crashed on me. So I'll just start here. So just a quick reminder, our virtual career expo is coming up October 13th. It's through Handshake from 11 to 5 p.m. So you want to make sure you register online. We're going to start our registering the week of September 28th. So we're looking for an email from us about that schedule so you can go on and register to attend company information sessions, group sessions, and one-on-one connections with those representatives. Next, this is our upcoming list of additional events coming up this month, and we have another calendar for October. As you can see, we have our JCPenney virtual suit up event that begins tomorrow through Sunday, and you should have received information about that. I've got my next screen is about the, there it is, the JCPenney suit up event. So October 18th through the 20th, there's a special code that you'll receive when you text that number to ERAU to that number. And then you can either go into the local store and shop with that, or you can shop online. So just know you have that option. And then next week is going to be the virtual interview, navigating the virtual interview, and then some virtual expo tips in our coffee chat. And then Monday the 28th, we've got navigating the virtual expo. So those will be really more helpful to the actual event and the platform. So now we have time for questions. You guys have any questions for me? Have you had any opportunities to do a virtual introduction yet with a company or in a professional organization or event, like a virtual, like a networking event or something?
After the Lockheed Rotary Mission Systems event last week, I connected with one of the engineers that was talking over LinkedIn and arranged to have a call with him and discuss like test engineering and Lockheed Martin, and he was in the engineering leadership development program, and I did an introduction when we started our call and introduced myself and kind of what I had done and stuff, and it was a little bit longer because we spent like an hour talking on the phone about different stuff, so I went a little bit longer and really elaborated on some of the stuff that I've done, but I can just tone that back for the career fair.
Yeah, exactly. So usually that's great. And you're right. You had a one-on-one conversation on the phone with them, and maybe you had emailed him your resume, or he could see from your LinkedIn profile a lot of the things that you've done, and you kind of want to go through and kind of hit some of those highlights there. And your conversation was very specific and intentional. In the career expo type of environment, you got to, if you're doing a one-on-one event, you've got 10 minutes with that recruiter, which really is longer than you might get face-to-face at a live physical career fair. But you don't want to spend a lot of that time with the introductions. You want to talk about who you are, what your interest is, why you're coming to them, what you want to know, and let that conversation get started. The biggest thing I think to the virtual introductions is making sure that your environment and your setup is the best as possible, so that they listen to you, they hear you, and they're not distracted with other things going on around them, and that you've practiced that introduction out loud, because that's where you're presenting yourself, you're showing your verbal communication skills. And yeah, they understand it's in a virtual environment and you're a student, but at the same time, you're showing them you're professional and that you've prepared, and that makes an impression too. So I think what you did, obviously, Alex, was probably right on for the type of environment that you were in. Yeah, good job. Anybody else have any specific questions that you might have been thinking coming into this, or problems that you've had in previous situations Like, how would I handle this? No? All right. Do you guys feel a little better prepared for introducing yourself in a virtual environment?
Sandy, can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
What if you go ahead and introduce yourself like this and you're a freshman and they say to you, you know, we're not taking freshmen. We're not interested in freshmen. How would you handle that at that point? Say they stopped you right at that point where you said you were a freshman and, you know, you didn't even get further. Should you try to, if you've got something, a special skill or something, should you try to incorporate that in there even though they say they're not interested in freshmen at the time?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's never hurts. If they stop you in the very beginning because they say, oh, we're not really looking for freshmen, we're looking for students that are closer to graduation. Ideally, they would have had some sort of parameters on who can sign up anyway in their event. However, if that wasn't the case, then what I would be prepared for is what are your, well, I like to call them your back pocket questions. So when I used to give a presentation about working the expo and how to be prepared about that, I always talked about my back pocket questions, those questions that in them, if I had to, I could pull them out, and that's really more of a saying. It wasn't real questions in my pocket. So I could pull them out and I could ask them if they tried to shut me down that way by saying, oh, you know, we're not looking for first year students, or we're looking for students that have a 3.0 or higher. At that point, you would want to ask those back pocket questions versus walking away or closing out your interaction. You could say to them, I understand, I'm really in that that's fine that you're looking for first year students. I'm really interested in working for your company in the future. If you wouldn't mind taking a look at my resume and just telling me what would stand out to you more if I come back and see you when I'm a junior or when I'm a rising junior at the end of my sophomore year or something like that. So it's made that interaction time with them more productive, and you actually walk away with something. So usually asking them if they would look at your resume, or asking them a little bit more about the intern program if they have one and they're looking to fill interns, but just for interns closer, you know, higher than a first year student might be at this point. Or definitely tell them, well, you know, I maybe you attended aviation high school and you got your A&P before you came here to school, and then you could say, well, I already have my A&P, and so I'm finishing my degree here, so I should actually, you know, be closer to graduation, you know, within a year, and so I'd like to learn a little bit more about your intern program and how my A&P certificate and my business degree would really fit in there. So having a few of those extra questions for that kind of a situation would be really helpful, so that you don't walk away feeling that you were rejected and that that time spent with that recruiter was not useful. However, there might be a case where that's just the case where it's like they don't want to talk to you for whatever that reason might be. It could be you're international and an international student and they just don't hire international students because of maybe ITAR requirements. If that's the case, I would still say, I understand that I didn't realize there was an ITAR requirement. However, I understand that you're limited there. Would you do me a favor and just give me some feedback on my resume so that, you know, I can hear your perspective, and then as I move forward and talk to other companies that aren't restricted, I'll have your feedback. So it's, I think about the way you ask, it's the way of, you know, being prepared to ask for that one more thing that might really set you apart. But that's a great question, Sally. Thank you. Forgot about my back pocket questions. Anybody else? Okay. Well, we will upload this presentation in onto our YouTube channel. And as Aaron mentioned, that video link that Mr. Roddy had shared with us will be on that PowerPoint, and you should be able to watch it, because he does talk in there about lighting and appropriate environment, and also that virtual handshake. Okay. So if you want to stop by the office, we have that elevator speech script on a little palm card that you can take away with you. So just ask them for that and they can give you one. Otherwise, you can access it through the PowerPoint that's going to be, or the PowerPoint will be, if you need the PowerPoint, I'll email it to you. Send me an email and I'll send you the PowerPoint directly. But this presentation will be on YouTube and you can watch it again later. Okay? All right, guys. Thanks for your time. Thanks for joining us today. And if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to me and I will be happy to try and help you. And then we look forward to you participating in some of our other events coming up soon. All right. Thanks. Have a great day, guys. You can stop recording now.